The US will never default. Why would they do that? They can print their own money. When you can print your own money, you will print money. You'll press a button. It'll go onto the Fed's balance sheet. The Fed will buy the bonds and just stick it on their balance sheet, right? Investor, I look at everything in duration and probabilities. And so I think there's a very high probability that if we have a problem, if we have a steep debasement in our currency because the Fed prints so much money that it melts faces, well, the things that are going to move are Bitcoin and gold.
A growing chorus of experts and macro analysts have been sounding the alarm about the imminent collapse of the dollar and the U.S. economy in recent weeks, beginning with the collapse of Silicon Valley Bank and widespread news of China's depolarization agenda. In the modern sense, popular macroeconomics expert Lynn Alden is one such analyst who has abandoned the dollar's eventual demise. Long-term, hegemony could be beneficial to the economy because it would eliminate the trade deficit that has plagued the country for decades. His massive debts, endless printing of money, and poor fiscal and monetary policies have been blamed by some for the rapid decline of the United States. They see what is happening as the end of one superpower and the beginning of another. They think that the country's chances of survival after the upcoming collapse are about as good as the country's current financial situation. They opt to take a step back, however, and take a closer look at things. Experts predict a massive storm for investors in the United States and other major economies around the world. Former hedge fund manager and prominent Bitcoin advocate James Lavish claims that the United States is stuck in a never-ending cycle of economic difficulties, currency debasement, and more economic difficulties. According to Lavish, there is no way out of the United States' current financial crisis other than to incur even more debt. Revenue drops like a rock as costs keep going up. As Lavish sees it, the United States continues to dig itself deeper into a bottomless pit of debt. In a recent interview with Invest Answers, Lavish shared his thoughts on the state of the U.S. economy and the only options available to investors. According to Lavish, politicians would never consider an austerity plan because it would require reductions in essential spending like Social Security, Medicare, and long-term defense spending contracts. The tax increases proposed in this theme fail to close the gaping deficit hole. Increasing debt levels and making the economy an even worse nightmare for investors is the only option.
60/40 is dead. It is absolutely dead. I mean, the problem is, James, the manipulation of money has been going on for so long that we now find ourselves in a situation where it will perpetuate in the United States for a long time. I know we have Canadian listeners. I know we have people that follow me in Europe, and they may not have as long of a time as we do. We have the luxury of being the global reserve asset and currency. So, but that said, this will only go on for so long. It is not sustainable forever. Now, the problem is, what do you do? How do you position yourself to not be flattened by some sort of major credit issue, like another breakdown like 2008? Well, you own hard assets, and I like to own gold, silver, and Bitcoin. Those are the hardest assets in the world. Bitcoin being the successor someday, and being probably the only one standing. So that's just this is a deep one, and it's reality. But I want to make clear that, it's not, while we sound alarm bells here, and what we're trying to do is wake people up. It's not a panic. You don't need to take all of your money out of the bank and, buy gold bars and shove them in your mattress quite yet, but this is, it's a problem that's not going to go away. And when it does collapse, it's going to collapse fast. And so that's my fear. That it may collapse fast. And so everything that I think of and I talk about and I look at, it's all probabilities. It's all based on math. It's all based on, that there's a higher chance of this happening than other things. And so that's how I look at the world. When you go out and talk to normal people in the world, you just walk out your front door and talk to 100 of your neighbors that you haven't already tried to orange pill, and just 20 of them, 19 of them will look at you like you're crazy when you talk about Bitcoin. One of them may have heard about it and possibly have dabbled in it or thought about it, but that's it. I mean, at the absolute most. So you're talking about just, a fraction, a tiny percentage of people who actually know about Bitcoin. So I look at gold as kind of like a bridge, and this is not about gold. This is about hard money. I look at it as like a bridge to that next step, And so the issue is right now, the global reserve asset is the US Treasury. And the US Treasury is in a debt spiral, and that is the issue. And so how do you bridge that? How do you, we don't know what's going to happen between now and the next 5 years, but I feel very confident that gold is a very good store of value. Now, beyond that, I don't know. And so if gold doubled or something from here, well, I would sell all that and put it into Bitcoin,
Yep.
because Bitcoin is the ultimate successor to hard money. And this is the premier asset global. This is the premier hard asset of the world. And when people wake up to that, it'll get to the point where it doesn't go up double or triple from here. I mean, it's up 20, 50, 100x. And that's where, that's where we're going. But I'm also an investor, right? And I think of things in timelines. I think of things in maturities and durations. And so you've got your lowest duration, which is the thing that you want to own with the lowest duration is US Treasuries. I just told you that they're in a debt spiral,
Yep.
right? So why would I own them? Because I have capital needs for the next 6 months, the next year, the next 2 years. And so I need to plan for that. I know that the dollar is debasing. I understand that, but that's what our currency is. So I need access to that quickly and easily, right?
Yep.
The volatility of Bitcoin does not give me ready capital. It doesn't fit my personal liquidity needs. Now I have plenty of that in my net wealth, but that's put aside forever. That's in a forever bucket. Gold is in a between now and forever bucket. It all has to do with money and just teaching them about money quickly and the reality of money manipulation and why there is inflation. And you can do that pretty quickly. Everybody's feeling inflation, the effects of it. Everybody's feeling the effects of, if you're not a billionaire, you're feeling the effects of the separation of wealth in the Western hemisphere, right? You're feeling the effects of central bank manipulation. Why? Because the Cantillon effect, Cantillon if you're French, right? So, but you're feeling that effect where they print money, the ones who benefit the most are closest to that spigot of capital where it just flows out into their bank accounts, into JP Morgan and Bank of America and Wells Fargo. It just flows right into those bank accounts. So those executives, the extraordinarily wealthy people who have access to that really cheap capital, and own assets, right? So if you own assets and you have a period of a rapid expansion of M2 money supply, well, where does it go? Where do people put that? They put it into assets. So if you own those assets, they appreciate, but in reality, what's happening is that they're just holding their value against the steep depreciation of the dollar. And that's where, and everybody feels that, everybody feels it. You go to the grocery store, if you buy the same exact things every single way, I can't tell you how many people I've talked to that said, yeah, I used to buy the same thing every other week. It's, $120. Now it's $150, $170, $180. The same items, And so I think that's, it's really easy to get people to understand the manipulation of money and why we need to stop that. And then the next step is, I should own, they think, I can't tell you how many people have said this to me. Yeah, but it's backed by gold. The dollar's backed by gold. When you explain to them that it's not, okay, then they think, oh, I should buy gold, right? Okay, that's a good idea. That's great. I'm not going to argue against that. However, how are you going to transact with gold? If you needed to leave your country, if your country becomes oppressive, if you're in Venezuela, Lebanon, Ghana. How do you leave with gold? You don't, and if you've got your 12 or 24 word passphrase, you can go anywhere in the world with Bitcoin. Number one, I really would like to see adoption occur organically and systematically for a long time, because that would be, I believe, a better scenario, and meaning safer, better for everyone, where Bitcoin just marches its way to someday becoming the global reserve asset, right? Where it's the place where people can store their money, their value, no matter where they live. Whether they're in Ghana, Venezuela, Saudi Arabia, United States, it doesn't matter. That's where they want to hold their value, right? So, but in the meantime, we have to deal with what's going on. And if there is a catalyst in the short term, so that's long term to me, but if there is a catalyst short term, it would be what we call a credit event. And you saw a credit event back when Lehman Brothers collapsed. We saw a credit event back when long-term capital management was on verge of collapse. We saw an interest rate event back in SVB, which could have turned into a credit event. So what's a credit event? It has to do with the massive amount of leverage that we have in the system, and one debtor fails, that causes a creditor to fail, which causes contagion across the financial system, and that's a credit event. And it could happen in the treasuries. We could get to a spot where we're issuing so many treasuries, we've tripped the debt ceiling, even if it's a technical default where they just quickly approve a new ceiling and they pay the creditors back. Even if it's that situation, it doesn't look good for the U.S. and the U.S. Treasury. That's a bad event.
Yeah.
So, but as we keep issuing more and more and more treasuries, James, we get to the point where we're crowding out certain balance sheets. There's only so much these balance sheets can consume treasuries.
Is James Lavish's assessment of the state of the American economy spot on? And if so, what are your thoughts on it? What preparations have you made for the impending storm? Leave your thoughts and feedback in the space provided. Thank you for tuning in to Market Empire. We hope you found this interview with James Lavish informative and thought-provoking. Be sure to subscribe to our channel to stay up to date on the latest news and analysis from the world of finance and investing. Until next time, happy trading.